Sitting in the mall food court some random day in August of 2021, I received this text from my mom telling me that my dad has tested positive for COVID-19. At his age and with the medical conditions that he has, he could definitely be considered at high risk in the situation. So obviously, I got really worried. We all know this feeling of worry that we get when we think we may lose someone that we love so much. The only thing I knew I could do immediately was pray. However, I knew that with the vaccinations he received, he was in pretty good shape to fight off the virus. I think I could almost say that allowing myself and my family to have trust in the science that has come of this virus, while also sticking to our religious beliefs, is one of the many reasons that my dad is still here and just as funny as he's always been. As for the ending I know you all wanted to hear, he eventually received an infusion and recovered quickly with the help of his doctors and their scientific expertise. This is one of many experiences in my life where allowing the use of my own personal religious faith along with scientific knowledge has helped me to live happier and more stress-free. So, continuing with the COVID-19 crisis as a whole, the combination of faith and science during this time was crucial. This story of my dad makes the importance of combining these two systems of belief very clear. Saying this is ironic, however, because of how much faith and science were pulled apart during this time. This worldwide crisis has driven political division and therefore created tensions between certain religions, such as Orthodox Catholics, and science since it began in 2019. This is one of those instances in which politics fanned the flames of this crisis and created so much more tension than there should have been. Studies show that religious conservatives have tended to stay away from vaccines and lay their health in God's hands. This distrust in public health officials and scientists most likely comes from political pressures. Likewise, the less religious Democratic Party has tended to be more pro-prevention. The political influence of different news stations, family members, coworkers, and several other factors that influence a person's life caused them to take a stance on issues like COVID-19 and therefore create tensions between those who disagree. I argue that there shouldn't be conflict between the two, but that's just not how the world sees it. Spiritual belief on its own is a very special and important aspect of life, and science is equally as important. However, they become truly valuable when we implement both into our lives. Now, a more recent time where I came across a small example of this conflict between religion and science is when Damar Hamlin experienced a near-death injury on the Bengals field. As soon as this happened, millions of people around the world began praying for him, including the players on the field. He also received immediate medical attention, and his condition was taken very seriously by the medical professionals surrounding him. Scrolling on Instagram, I came across this post about Damar's steady recovery. I went to the comments to see what people were saying, and I saw this top comment that says, "Those paramedics may have saved his life." Then I went to the replies, and I saw this reply that says, "It was the prayers all over Instagram that saved his life, not the medical professionals." Seeing this just made me question why this person couldn't accept that maybe it was both the prayers all over Instagram and the medical professionals that saved his life. Why does it have to be one way or the other? Although this is just a small example of this conflict, it shows that it can come up in any conversation, whether it's one about an injury such as Damar's or one about a more complicated topic such as abortion. Now, I know I'm talking to an audience filled with students that go to an Episcopal school. Although not all of you are Episcopalian, many of you probably know that, for the most part, the Episcopal religion accepts science into its religious philosophies. While many other religions have also evolved to accept science into their religious beliefs, it becomes obvious that there is underlying conflict when something happens that tests the compatibility of the two. This is largely due to the political spinning of these events and the bias that comes with each person's upbringing. See, there's a large spectrum of people who believe in religion and science to a certain extent. There's the anti-science Christians, the people who believe in only science and no religion at all, and a wide variety of people in between. I'm not saying that you have to be a certain way or believe what I believe. However, I do want to provide my view of this relationship so that anybody questioning it can have an outlook to fall back on and to use to their advantage. So a lot of you may be thinking that I'm trying to preach to you guys or to force my beliefs onto you. You may think that what I'm saying doesn't apply to you, or you just want to stick to what you already believe about religion and science. Believe me, I know you're thinking that now, but I'm not here to force anything on you. I know I can't preach to you or tell you what to believe, but hopefully I can spark something in some of you guys that will lead you to experience life on a different, more complex level. So, with regards to the bigger questions that many of you may have about the conflict between religion and science, we've always been in a position of uncertainty regarding many aspects of our world. How we were created, how Earth was created, and several other questions have gone unanswered, leaving people wanting a solid explanation. Although we will never have a concrete answer to these questions, science can lead us in the right direction and even give us very possible theories. Many people have seen this as a reason to recede from religious practices and to focus only on science to explain current-day issues. Others, however, have seen this constant shift in scientific knowledge as a reason to not trust it and to focus only on their religious beliefs instead. When stuff hits the fan and there's a crisis, the polarization of these two institutions becomes very apparent. I argue that we should be using these two systems of belief together during these times of crisis, rather than furthering the divide between the two. So, while I've been using lots of terms that refer to organized religion, I'm definitely not only talking about established institutions. I like to use the word spiritual to generalize what I mean in contrast to science. Tapping into a spiritual plane in any form can count as faith, and research shows that spiritual rituals can be especially helpful in times of crisis, keeping us in rhythm with our daily lives. They can look like a morning or evening prayer, a meditation, or any other small action that helps us to feel stronger in our own faith. They often mark the beginning or end of a period, guiding us through life's more difficult transitions. Gathering with other people to complete these simple rituals fosters that sense of connectedness that we need to get through times of crisis. We are meant to support one another with our presence, and being together is almost always better than being alone. Real studies show that prayer services are very beneficial to our mental health on a daily basis, but especially during times of crisis. Prayers and sermons seem to hit so much closer to home when we have something specific to apply them to. Now, I know not all of you are religious, and again, I'm not at all saying that you have to be. However, being open to the idea of spirituality can help to complexify your views of the world for the better. So with that being said, I don't think that we should focus on religion completely. Allowing science to be woven into our views of the world is crucial. When I have a question relating to the existence of the universe, I think about whether or not it can be answered using scientific data. If it can, personally, I'll typically accept the scientifically proven answer. But if it can't, then I'll look to my religious beliefs for a faithful answer. I know I'm making this seem a lot more simple than it really is, and of course there's always going to be questions where religion and science are inherently at odds. Examples of this are the abortion debate, a conversation about at what point after conception does an embryo become a real human life, and the stem cell research debate, a similar argument about the morality of using embryonic cells to do research. While I do have opinions on these topics, I won't share them because that's just one of those arguments that nobody will ever win. So to take some inspiration from different religions and philosophies, I researched some into Buddhism. Now, Buddhism is a very peaceful philosophy that looks in life in a very balanced way. So I decided to take this quote from an article of a Buddhist woman from Malaysia saying that science to her is statistics, numbers, and texts. Something she can see, she can touch, and she can feel, or hear. Religion to her is science, something that she cannot see, she cannot touch, she cannot hear. I think that this quote perfectly encapsulates what I argue that religion and science should be. There shouldn't be conflict between the two because they just don't answer the same questions. So, just like the mystery of religion, there are a lot of things in this world that I will never know. There are so many unknowns that we have to navigate through, which will require us to think about situations in a way that we may not be used to. Whether this is applying more of a religious outlook to issues in your personal life or thinking more in terms of science, I argue that the best way to see things is through a layered lens of both religious and scientific knowledge in order to live in this world in the nicest and most well-rounded way possible. To do this, we have to avoid putting ourselves into boxes and forget about our biases for just a little bit. Thank you.